All right. Welcome, everybody. We are so excited to have you with us tonight. Thank you for coming out and for spending this evening with us. I have a few things to get through. My name is Peter Ulrich. I'm the Director of School and College Counseling on the Upper School campus. It is awesome to have you all with us and to have you here. Michelle Richardson, my colleague, is going to be introducing our 4 panelists to you in a minute. We are incredibly fortunate to have with us some friends and colleagues from admission offices in different parts of the country, representing some really awesome institutions which are different from each other in important and interesting ways. We could not be more grateful to have you all with us, and thank you for coming. I want to say a few thanks this evening before we get started. First, to our friends in IT, thank you for all the setup tonight, getting us going on the camera, getting us going with all the sound and everything going. Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you so much to Sage Dining Services and our friends in the dining services for setting up all this beautiful food tonight and for taking an evening to do that for us. Thank you all so much. Thank you to our maintenance team for all the work to set everything up in here tonight. We really appreciate you guys, and we're grateful. And then the whole team has been working hard on this event, but I want to say a special thanks to Michelle Richardson and Claudia Estrada, who really kind of were at the heart of getting this program set up. Thank you for making it all. Michelle is going to introduce our panelists after my remarks. I want to take a couple minutes to make sure I introduce our team to you as well. Connie Ernstberger, our Associate Director of College Counseling. Sarah Campbell, both Miller's counselor and 10th grade counselor. Chucky Carver, college counselor on the Upper School campus. The famous Michelle Richardson now, also college counselor on the Upper School campus. Nichelle Haymore, college counselor on the Upper School campus. Yasmin Rivera McGinnis, college counselor on the Upper School campus. Gina Pelaez cannot be with us tonight. She felt ill this afternoon, but wanted to send her best wishes to everyone and wishes everyone a great night. You will get to know Gina as well. A couple of words about the program tonight. Tonight, our panelists are going to be spending time answering questions asked by our team, some of which are directed at understanding the college landscape in general, different characteristics of colleges, questions that are kind of basic. What is a liberal arts school? What are the differences between different types of environments? Some of those questions. Then questions will go to things that are more specific to each type of institution, to then pieces of the admissions process and understanding the admissions process and how it plays out in the different environments that you're in. Again, super fortunate to have representatives from colleges in the U.S. coming to spend time with us at Gulliver, just with our families tonight. I think you all know, what a privilege that is and what a great opportunity it is for us to do that. So you should leave here tonight certainly well-informed, some new things to think about, given a greater context for what's ahead in some of your own thoughts about the college admissions process that you'll eventually be in. I want to say a couple of broader words about that. I was talking with Chrissy Iglesias from the University of Pennsylvania just a few minutes ago, and we were talking about how so much of the environment around the college admissions discussion is around scarcity, right? And this idea of how difficult it's getting and how hard it is, and how the idea is to come to an event like this and get the tricks or the hacks to figure out how to kind of yield outcomes in the admission process, or to try to find an edge, or to try to find a way in. And I think, especially with this awesome group of colleagues tonight, what I hope to leave here with is a renewed sense that that's actually not what this is all going to be about, okay? That actually you are the prized possession in this equation, that you, working to continue to grow into your best selves through the course of your time in high school, and continue to get to know yourself and to start to really think seriously and thoughtfully about the things you want out of this next step in your journey, will then lead you to do your own research and make your own choices among the colleges that are out there that are going to be the best fit for you. We are super committed to remaining in that mode with you at Gulliver, okay? You're not going to hear from us all the time about the hacks and the tricks, and here's how you play the game, and here's how you strategize in order to kind of find the edge that no one else is going to find. That's not a winning game. It really isn't, right? In the end, this whole experience is really about you, your own growth, your own kind of taking advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you in high school to continue to find your way forward. And you'll also recognize that this journey is not one where you're sprinting towards the finish line at the end of high school, but as many of you have heard me say before, that line that you're sprinting towards reads start. You're going to be 18 years old. Your whole life is going to be in front of you. This is the first of many major choices in your life. First of many major choices in a much longer journey that you're on. You're always going to be reminded of that by us, and we are always going to be committed to that idea with you. Really important that you know that, okay? Right now, our seniors have a couple of days left to finalize their choices on where they're going to go, and they're on the other side of this kind of rush through the journey of the last year and a half of getting to know themselves, of thinking about colleges that meet those selves, and then learning about the different facets of the application process, completing that application process with a lot of support, and then finding their way to the institutions where they have chosen to go in this next stage of their journey. Two of us, Ms. Ernsberger and I, have children who are seniors this year, one of whom is attending a school with one of these folks at this table, and one of them in my house who just finally made a decision last night, or 2 nights ago, I should say. I will say, going through this process as a parent the last couple of years, really working to take our own advice and to keep it focused on our own child's growth and on their thinking about what they want and who they are, and not trying to warp themselves into some idea of what our 4 friends here and their friends might want, has been really hard. There are a lot of signals around us that send other energy to us, but it's been really important. And in the end, super excited about where our son is going to college and about this step in their journey. I know Connie feels the same way about their daughter. Our juniors are in the heart of their research process right now, both getting to understand themselves and really beginning in earnest their process of figuring out colleges that might meet those selves in the ways that you want them to be met. They're really in the heart of that right now, and a lot of work over the next month or so to begin to solidify their plans for summer and to get them ready for when they return in August to be handling the process in earnest after a lot of work over the summer. For you all as sophomores, for you kids in the room, this is still a far off thing. It's in the air. You can't mistake it. It's there. But you're not engaged in it, most of us, in a super meaningful way at this point, and that's exactly as it should be. Right? And at the same time, what's best for you as a person right now and as a student, digging into your classes, digging into the things you love to do, really taking advantage of every opportunity, trying to grow as much as you can. Those things are going to be best for you as a college applicant in the future, and when we dig into this work in a more meaningful way over the coming year. Okay. For you as parents, I really just want to assure you, I guess especially as a parent who's now on the other side of it, that you are going to, from us, be reminded again and again and again to keep trusting your best instincts as parents, right? To remember that this is not about trying to fit anyone else's idea of who your kid should be, that no college outcome is the end goal in anyone's journey, right? But that the self-discovery part of this and the taking advantage of every opportunity and the growing is going to yield the results that it's meant to yield. And you're going to have a lot of support along the way in ways that you'll learn more about as we go forward into next year. Okay? Without any further talking from me, though, I want to have Michelle Richardson come up and introduce our panelists. I will say we are enormously grateful to have their wisdom tonight and their insights. We're really fortunate, too, to have such different types of universities represented. But these 4 colleagues have been super special to us, and we're really grateful that they're here. So thank you for your time.
So I'm the lucky one that gets to introduce these wonderful people in front of us, and I feel so honored and blessed to be here tonight with you guys. So first and foremost, we're going to go with, hold on, sorry about that. We are going to start with Cassie Tate, and Cassie is the South Florida Regional recruiter at University of Alabama. As you can see, she has her Alabama sticker there. She is a South Florida regional recruiter for the University of Alabama based in Fort Lauderdale and has been recruiting South Florida students for the University of Alabama since 2009. She loves working with such diverse groups of students across South Florida and helping them each find their place at University of Alabama. Quote, the best part of being a recruiter is the relationships I've made, and that is with recruiters, students, counselors, and families. She truly loves her job. Casey is an alumni at University of Alabama. Wow, okay. And her husband is an alumni at University of Alabama, and her son is an alumni at University of Alabama. Oh, and she has 2 daughters that go to the University of Alabama. Wow. So what do they say? Roll Tide? Right, okay. So I have a fun fact for you about Cassie, okay? Are you ready? All right, let's see. Nick Savin wrote Cassie's letter of recommendation when she was applying for her current position 14 years ago. Who knows who Nick Savin is? Sabin. Okay, I'm from Nicaragua. It's a joke in my office, sorry. Sabin, okay. Who knows? Raise your hand. Who is he? Okay, and do we also know that he was here at the Dolphins for a while? Yeah, okay. All right. Oh, not popular. Okay, so let's give a hand to Cassie, please. Thank you. Okay, our next rep, Nate Crozier, Assistant Vice President of Admissions and Marketing at the University of Miami. Yep, yeah, right down the street, right now. Okay. So he serves as the head of the University of Miami Admissions, where he has been spearheading their admissions efforts since December of 2017. Prior to his role at UM, Nate was the Executive Director of Admissions at the University of Richmond, which is when I met you, Nate, in the international world, and an Associate Director of Admissions at DePaul University, an Associate Director of Admissions at the University of Chicago, Booth School of Business, and an Assistant Director of Admissions and Senior Final Aid Officer at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. Wow. Lots of places. That's awesome. Okay, Nate, so fun fact about you is Nate has visited 4 countries in one day. What countries were those, Nate?
It was Europe and I think Costa Rica. Oh. We went to Salvador, and we went to Honduras, and then we ended up in Miami.
Oh, wow. Okay. No Nicaragua? No. Sorry. Okay. Okay, that's okay next time. Okay. All right, so let's give it up for Nate. Thank you. Our next rep is Chrissy Iglesias, Associate Director of Admissions at University of Pennsylvania. Chrissy was born and raised in South Florida and completed her undergraduate work at Stanford University, where she earned her bachelor's degree in human biology and history. After working in student affairs at Stanford, she went to the University of Pennsylvania to pursue her master's degree and doctorate in higher education. At Penn, Chrissy had roles as both an academic and career services advisor, both starting her role at Penn Admissions in 2014. In her current role, she directs research and quantitative analysis for office initiatives and serves as Penn's athletic liaison to the Ivy League, in addition to managing and reading applications from South Florida for Penn. Wow, a lot. Okay, so fun fact about her is during a visit to Antarctica, she was bitten by not one, but 2 penguins. Crazy stuff. I didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. Okay, we'll talk. And she survived, she's here. Okay. Our last rep is Federico Gilman, Senior Associate Director of Admissions at Lynn. He arrived from Buenos Aires, Argentina to attend Lynn University and received a Bachelor of Science and a Master's degree. So student first. He has served on numerous committees to help advocate for students, including Lynn University's Presidential Scholarship. He has participated on the Association of Hispanic Colleges and University Scholarship Committee. Freddie has also been a reader for the Horizon Award for the SACAC and recently completed a full term serving on the executive board of the Southern Association for College Admissions Counseling, known as SACAC. At Lynn University, Freddie has been there for, what, 14 years?
Why are we bringing up years?
Oh, sorry, okay. Sorry, Mr. Gilman. This coming year, he will be moving to George Washington University, where we know he will be a star in the office. So Freddie, fun fact, he has finished 15 half marathons. 15 people, that's pretty good, Freddie. Okay, so now that we've gotten through all of that, now the show is about to start. Our program will begin. I'm going to invite Ms. Jasmine McGinnis to come up and start with what it is like to be in college.
So as Ms. Richardson said, I am here to ask a few questions about what it's like to be in college. So if you would indulge me. Now, can perhaps University of Miami, can you tell me what the difference between a college and a university is, Mr. Crozier?
Put me on the spot. So at any rate, with the University of Miami, we have 9 schools or colleges that kind of funnel up to a university, right? And so a college could have departments that funnel up to the college level, right? So it's more about how they're organized than anything else, and a lot of them kind of parallel with the size of the institution. So generally speaking, if you have a college, you have schools or departments that funnel up. If you have a university, you have colleges that then funnel up to a university level. Again, not always the rule of thumb in terms of size, but usually that's a nice kind of guide to kind of determine the difference between the two.
Thank you. So next question, and I'm actually going to ask each of you because I think it's very important since you represent different types of schools. Can you tell me a little bit about why you love your school and your work? Cassie?
Well, I think you all could hear from my introduction that University of Alabama, in my case, quite literally is a family affair, and it is a family, a community that takes care of each other, that looks out for each other. And it's something that you feel when you get on county campus and something that stays with you after you leave. Both my husband and I are both graduates of Alabama, but neither of us are from Alabama, and in fact only lived in the state of Alabama as students there. And so it's something that we felt when we got to campus, something that has stayed with us since we've left. And it's something that when you're choosing a college, obviously the academics are very important. That's a huge piece of it. But you're also choosing your first home away from home. And so what that feels like to you and what that means to you and what you're looking for is also a big part of that. And that's what it meant for me my first time on campus, and I often talk to families, that feeling you get, and you often get it within that first 5 minutes, you know if it's right or if it's wrong. And sometimes that's different than what your perception was when you were thinking of different schools. So go in those visits because you're gonna know what feels right for you.
Sure, so I came to the University of Miami almost 6 years ago, and I was super excited because I've had the good fortune of working at some excellent institutions throughout the country, but really nowhere is like the University of Miami. So we have a very unusual value proposition. Nowhere can you find as much academic and social opportunity for the size of campus community. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, we're a university. I just talked about colleges, universities. So we have 9 undergraduate colleges that kind of span the gamut. So you can find everything from communication to engineering to business to nursing, architecture, and even programs like marine and atmospheric science. So everything that you would expect from a much larger public flagship institution. We have students from all over the world, all different backgrounds, socioeconomic, race, ethnicity, country, citizenship. We have Division I athletics that compete at the national level, go Final Four, right, and Elite Eight. But yet we're a medium-sized institution. So 75% of our classes have fewer than 30. 55% of our classes have fewer than 20. And so it's this kind of nice mix of like large academic and social opportunity, but you're not going to be sitting in a lecture hall with 300, 400, 500 students. And then the last thing is what a backdrop of Miami. And this is the challenge of working for a great institution and trying to recruit talented and diverse students who grew up in the same area in which we're located. But the reality is that Miami is home to 1,000 organizations that have headquarters or offices here in South Florida. 75% of our county residents, as you all know, speak more than one language, 52% born outside the U.S. I oftentimes joke, I'm not a huge fan of Florida, and everyone's like, yeah, but you live in Florida. I was like, I live in Miami-Dade, which is its kind of own animal. But it's super fun, and the last thing I'll say that's really unique, and I didn't realize this when I moved here, was just how kind of compact and easy to navigate the city is, notwithstanding traffic. But the reality is that from campus you can make it to some really cool different neighborhoods like Little Havana, Brickell, Coconut Grove, downtown Coral Gables, and it's all a stone's throw away if you plan your drive accordingly, right? So it's a super fun place, lots going on, and that's what I love about the University of Miami.
So I'll hop in for Penn. So one of the things that makes Penn unique, in my opinion, in the Ivy League schools, is that we have the 4 undergraduate schools. The College of Arts and Sciences, the Wharton School of Business, the School of Engineering and Applied Science, and the School of Nursing. So that means we're experts in a lot of things. And when students enroll in a school at Penn, they have the luxury of exploring across the curriculum. So it really is that interdisciplinary experience. You're getting experts in all sorts of areas. You're surrounded by really talented, high-achieving peers. I'm inspired by our students every day. Quite frankly, I look at them and I'm like, how come you're so much smarter than me? You're like half my age. But most importantly, they are smart. You think, oh, they're smart kids, but they're also nice. They're collaborative. They really want to be a part of the Penn community, and they want to learn. And not only do they want to learn, they want to use their education to make the campus, make the community a better place. It's not just enough to learn something, you have to apply it, because what good is education if it just sits on a shelf? So, as you also know, Penn was founded by Ben Franklin, so kind of a big deal in U.S. history, and we think of our students as mini Ben Franklins. So they're using their education to better the world around them, they're trying new things. Sometimes things don't go according to plan, and that's okay, and we want to make sure they have that process of exploration, trying new things before they find what's right for them. So it really is a talented community, but also a collaborative and supportive community. And last but not least, we're located in a city, so a city that's a little bit different than Miami. We do have the 4 seasons. But one of the things I like about Penn, coming there as a South Florida native, is that you have that campus feel. It's not just, oh, it's like a city and there's all these buildings and the school itself. No, you have a 300-acre campus. So when you're on the campus, it feels like you're on a college campus, and all of the wonderful highlights and hallmarks of Penn are accessible to you. Yet it's still like a 5-minute subway ride or a 20-minute walk into the downtown. So our students have access to world-class museums, nightlife, restaurants, lots of great things. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. You get the city and the campus feel. So those are some of my favorite things about Penn, but we can talk more about it later. Pass it on to Freddie.
I'm gonna behave, so. At the end of the day, to me, it really was the community at Lynn University. It's my alma mater, it's been my home. I came from Buenos Aires, Argentina, actually in 2007. My goal was to make it as a professional soccer player growing up. I thought I made it pretty far. They used to call me Fast and Furious without the fast part. So, You can imagine, I'm about 5'2". I wasn't the best person at corners. So when I was looking at colleges in the United States, what really stood out to me about Lynn University is every time I called or emailed, they never asked me for my ID number. Although I graduated from Lynn University in 2011, so in total, Ms. Richardson wasn't that far off when she said 14 years. I've been in the office 16 years, including my time as a student. I noticed that Lynn University every 5 or 6 years changes because we have to adapt to the world. We have a very innovative and forward-thinking president. Just 4 things I wish I would have had when I was a student that our students have now. We have a block schedule. Our students are only taking 1 course every 4 weeks, Monday through Thursdays for 2.5 hours. Could you imagine being fully entrenched in your degree and just seeing it from a different perspective instead of rushing from English to math to science to an elective? We acknowledge that technology is such a crucial part of our society. All of our students receive an iPad Pro, which I wish we would have had, because I remember my first year we spent $2,000 on textbooks. And for the parents, when you try to sell it, they're like, we'll give you $10 back for a $200 textbook. You're like, you know, you can keep the $10. But I remember during the last presidential elections, our faculty members would open up Donald Trump and Joe Biden's Twitter and for 30 minutes analyze how 150 characters really changes society. Our president made a very bold move a few years ago. He developed a 3-year degree program that our students can actually graduate in 3 years instead of 4, and we will actually pick up 30 credits. So many of our students are actually staying their 4th year for their master's. And last but not least, we're not afraid to challenge the status quo. Our faculty members developed a curriculum they wish they would have taken in college. For English, they actually developed a course called Black Lives Matter, in which we talk about racism and anti-Semitism in the United States. We had a course on Roe versus Wade. We're not here to indoctrinate you, but if you're not comfortable talking in a class of 18 students, you shouldn't be posting it on social media. But that's really what I love about Lynn University, is that our president is cutting edge, forward-thinking, and he's never afraid to take risks for our students.
Thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit about the size of colleges. Can you tell us a little bit about how you feel, in your opinion, how does the size of a college impact a student's experience?
I'll start that. I think that we're the largest at the table. University of Alabama has 38,000 students. Now, that includes our law school and graduate school because we're all physically in one same space. And that can come with a lot of benefits and some challenges. The benefits are, if you're interested in it, we probably have that as an option. With over 800 different student organizations, if you're looking for it, we probably have it. With over 200 different majors, again, if you're looking for it, we probably have it. So those opportunities are there across the board. That being said, as big as we are, when you're there as a student, it feels much, much smaller. And we've done that in a couple of ways, but the most impactful is the physical space. As the University of Alabama has grown, they've done a very good job of moving non-essential student services, like the admissions office, university printing, maintenance, administrations, things that really aren't a part of the students' everyday lives have been moved to the outskirts of campus, so that where that classroom space is still just right off of our one main quad. So when a student has a 9 a.m. class and a 10 a.m. class, they can walk from one to the other. They're not trucking at 1.5 miles to get from here to there. It's kept in a very compact space. We also do several other things to keep it in the community and the family feel. Over 60% of our students in Alabama are not from the state of Alabama. So most students are not going home for the weekends. Most students are coming from somewhere outside the state of Alabama. Through that, we require freshmen to live on campus, and we don't have online classes. All of our classes are in person in the classroom, and we do this combined with students living on campus so that from day one, our freshmen are there in the classrooms, part of that community, because in a big environment like that, we feel like all of these things are very important because we don't want our students just sitting in their classroom watching that class on a computer monitor. We want them in the classroom, engaging with the other students, engaging with that faculty, so that they can find their own community within the larger community at a large state university.
Thank you.
Sure, I always go back to, at the end of the day, you get to pick where you're going to apply and where you're going to enroll. I really say it comes down to 3 C's. What's the social community like, the learning culture, and the career outcomes. For this question, the social community, you can view that with your own eyes. And my advice is going to the dining commons or the cafeteria or however they call it and see if students eat by themselves. Because if you're an extrovert, can you be successful in an introverted setting? Probably. But if you're an introvert, can you be successful in an extrovert setting? That's a little bit more difficult. If you're a student that's a little bit underrepresented, walk around campus and try to see, hey, do students look like me? Do they talk like me? If you're part of other communities, same thing. At the end of the day, I always say it comes back down to, it's probably the Hispanic blood in me, it's the food portion. If students eat by themselves, to me that's a sign that, you know what, you have to be very independent. But if students are always eating together, that really shows me a different side of the community.
Thank you. I think unfortunately my time is up and we're moving to another topic from the student's perspective, and Mr. Carver is going to lead this question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to ask some questions from the student's perspective. So any of you can feel free to answer, but you don't all need to. So what are the best ways for students to get to know colleges? Don't all of you speak at once.
All right, I'll hop in and I'm sure other folks can add on. So there are a lot of ways to get to know colleges. You know, we've just kind of been through a pandemic and some students had to get to know colleges virtually. And that's definitely an option if you're not able to travel to campus or perhaps it doesn't align with your schedule. So maybe the first way you'll dig into a college campus is by looking at their website, their admissions website. You can get a sense of, you know, what kind of admissions policies they have, what their curriculum is like, what student life is like. But you want to dig deeper than just those websites, right? You want to look at social media. So whether it's the college's Instagram, Twitter, get to know what's going on that campus. Student publications are also a great way to get that vibe, that culture that Freddie was talking about. What are students doing? What are they excited about? What are they protesting against? What are they supporting? That can help you get a better sense of the culture of that campus. Visiting in person is always a great option if you're able to do that. A lot of times people ask, when is the best time to visit? Especially my South Florida friends, they're like, when's the best time to visit Philadelphia? And I'm like, well, probably the winter, so you get a sense of it will snow. But really the answer is the best time to visit is when you're able to visit. So whether that's the summer, spring break, another time of the year, that can help you get a sense of what that feeling is like that Cassie was saying. What does it feel like when you get to campus? What are the students, what's the vibe? And you can know, probably a lot of times within the first 5 minutes or so, like, is this the place for me? Do I like this or not? You can also attend an information session, campus tours. Some schools may offer additional campus programming, so perhaps programs for underrepresented students, programs for first-generation students, just to help you get to learn more about that campus and what they offer. So anyone else can feel free to add if there are other ideas.
I always add, especially since we're talking to sophomores in the room and college does seem sort of far away, when you're on family trips, when you're on school trips, stop by and see local colleges. There are colleges everywhere, even if it's a school that you've never heard of or a school that you don't think you're interested in. Because often what you think you want in a college at your age turns out to be something different, or often what you think a college is, what that school is going to be like, and actually getting on that campus is very different. I think it's equally as important to find out what you don't like as it is to find out what you do. So when you're on trips going around, there's college campuses everywhere. Just stop in, walk around. It's going to help you develop that feeling of what you want, what you're looking for, so that when you're getting to your junior year, it's going to help you sort of look at that list in a different way. The academic piece is very easy to research online. We all love showing off the things that our students are doing. And we love to put it on social media, we love to put it online. So those are easy things to research. But I think going and stopping at all those schools, as many as you can, is fun. When you get to the right place, you'll know it.
I think super quick, just speak with your college counselor. I mean, this is a great team. They have years of experience. They've been to numerous campuses. Speak with your college counselor.
Okay, thank you. So next, what kind of things should students be doing during the summers to prepare for college?
Do you mean the summer before they enroll or during the application process?
After 10th grade, after 11th
Oh,
grade.
okay. Well, I would say for going into your senior year, I would definitely not procrastinate on beginning to at least compose your college admission essays. So they usually come out in May, June for the Common App essay prompts, and then many universities, I would venture guess to say all or most of us up here have supplemental essay prompts that, I think universities are more likely to put on in the beginning of the summer, June, July, to give you time to craft or begin to craft your response, right? And so I would definitely do that. I think in terms of things to do with school, maybe earlier on, as 10th going into 11th grade, think about course selection, activities that you might join, and again, or continue. And the thing there is, think about quality over quantity. So, I've always felt like if someone does something, maybe 2 or 3 things, but does them at a level that's very deep and meaningful and impactful, that shows me a lot in terms of commitment. And there's actually some empirical research out there in terms of persistence through college as well. So, I'm less concerned about if someone's done 6, 7, 8, 9 things, but maybe done 2 or 3 and done them at a really deep, meaningful level. So anyway, those are just a few suggestions that come top of mind.
I actually get asked this question a lot. Students will come up to me, like we'll meet at an information session or something, and they'll say, what should I do with my summer? And I'm like, whoa, wait, we just met. I don't know what you should do with your summer. And I ask them, what do you want to do with your summer? So this is kind of what Nate was talking about, those extracurriculars, how you should get involved. And I think you should do with your summer something productive and something meaningful to you. And that can mean different things for different people. I know there's a lot of summer programs, there's internships, there's sports camps, there's even, just being at home, reading books or getting a part-time job. All of those things are valuable in their own right because they kind of help you develop who you are going to be. If you're shy or an introvert, maybe getting a part-time job is a good idea because it'll force you to talk to people and be out there in the real world. Or maybe you want to explore a topic really in depth, so you take a class at University of Miami or you join a summer program somewhere else. All of these things are meaningful, and just be thoughtful about how you spend your summers and your school years, because this can kind of help you refine what you want for your academic experience in high school and also what you want when you get to that next level at college or university.
The one thing I'll add to, and something Christy stated kind of piqued my interest, and also to dovetail off of what Peter said at the very beginning about self-discovery. This is a process that ultimately is about you and, what type of environment you'll like to and thrive in learning, right? And not just classroom environment, but also like location. Can you do okay, or can you thrive in a more rural setting, or, suburban or urban? And, one thing that's really important about it, because it's a self-discovery process, most often, the authentic kind of you should come through. So don't approach kind of things that you should be doing based on what you think we want to see, right? As if there's like a magic formula to gain admission into any of our institutions. And the truth is that if you approach it that way, thinking about what you want to get out of your experience in high school and be genuine and authentic about it, and approach your college list the same way, right? Not based on what schools rank the best, because we can have a whole session about rankings and what goes into the rankings, which are pretty interesting. But the reality is that that's ultimately what you should be doing, is doing what's of interest to you, honing your passions, honing your interests, because when you come to campus, we want multi-dimensional, textured students. We don't want students who literally go to class, go to their residence halls, don't contribute to the campus community, or at least, I'll speak only for Miami, right? We want students who kind of are multi-dimensional and textured, who have contributed to their high school communities and will do the same for our campus community. And again, I would encourage you to kind of approach high school and the rest of your high school in terms of what you're interested in, what you're passionate about.
Thank you. What special advice do you have for international students or first-generation students and their families?
Rossi wants to go first. Do you want to go first? No. And I think it's not so much just international first generation, but I think for anyone, it's okay to not know. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to sometimes feel a little bit lost in your own community. I mean, with my other colleagues here, if you hear from what everybody mentioned, majority of their students are not from their local state. Everybody's in the same storm. We're just in different boats. It's okay to ask for help at the end of the day. And that, regardless of your background, community, how you identify, there's gonna be times that you're gonna have even flows in college, and you gotta figure out what your community is and how to get out of that maybe little downward trend back up.
Thank you. And next, could you talk a little bit about the difference between club sports and varsity sports?
So we have both varsity sports and club sports. I think generally speaking, varsity sports are sports where you're competing with kind of at the collegiate level. So think, Ivy League, ACC, SEC, competing against universities that are kind of maybe not in your immediate area. There's intense practice schedules, season schedules. For a lot of student athletes, they're recruited student athletes, so their scholarship, they get basically a scholarship, an athletic scholarship to play for the institution. For club sports, there still can be kind of that, that inner kind of campus competition. So you might have a club team at compete against a club team at a nearby university, but generally there's not kind of the far-flung travel that's involved. Like you wouldn't have a club team at travel up to, say, UVA or UNC to play another club team in the ACC, right? So that's where it's a little bit different. Club athletes, aren't on scholarship to attend. There are schedules, there are practices, there are dues and uniforms with club sports, so the students can take them pretty seriously. So it's kind of like the next layer or level down from varsity, which is a lot of fun. And then there's also intramurals, which, the name implies it's kind of intra-campus. So you could have an intramural basketball league, so you're competing, and there's different levels. So you can have a super competitive basketball league, where you're playing against other students, for example. Maybe it's, single gender or co-ed, depending on kind of the sport, the level of competition. So there's a lot of different options for you, which is super fun, right?
Yeah, I want to reiterate the rec sports. Don't overlook that. It is a great way to get involved. I read some crazy stat at the University of Alabama that something like 90% of our students were high school athletes in some capacity. Very, very few of them are Division I athletes at Alabama, but they're all still kids who love their sports. And they're all still kids who put a lot of time into it, a lot of energy, and really loved it. And I worked with a student once who was on a state championship soccer team. He loved it. It was his life, did everything. But he was not a Division I athlete. He just wasn't. But he came to Alabama and he got involved in the rec soccer leagues. And he said, it's like in middle school again. I'm just out there having fun with my friends and I can just love it and have fun. So just because you're not going and playing at the collegiate level does not mean you're giving up your sport. There's lots of different ways to get involved beyond that.
Thank you. And the last question for all panelists. As these students start their college search, what advice would you like to share with them?
I'm going to steal Freddie's. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. Ask questions. And remember that when you get to your senior year, every single senior is going through that process for the first time. None of them have done it before. They're all going through it for the first time. They're going to make it through. You will too. But ask for help. You guys have an amazing team here of counselors at Gulliver. And don't be afraid to ask us as admissions counselors for help as well. It is literally our job to help you through that process. So use us. We are here as a resource for you. So take advantage of us.
So I give maybe some advice to the students and then a statement for the parents. And so for the students, and actually for the family in general, don't let the process, the college search process or the college application process consume your daily or your weekly lives, which, by the way, it can if you let it, especially kind of later this summer and fall, right? And so what I recommend you do is you have a time, maybe 30 minutes once a week or once every other week, where, if you all are kind of doing independent research or you visited a college and you want to debrief on that visit, you come together, as a family, exchange ideas, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and then once that time period ends, you're done until the next scheduled time. So that's my piece of advice is just set aside a time once a week, short, sweet, and then you don't talk about the process outside of that scheduled time, okay? And then the statement for the parents, I would just say, is the job you did or the verdict of your job as parents isn't based on the window sticker or bumper decal on your car. Truly, this process, again, I can't emphasize this enough, is about your students' self-discovery and the academic and campus environment in which they're going to thrive. And so, for that reason, they should be driving the process. You should be there as you have their entire lives as support, but ultimately it's for them self-discovery in its most pure form.
Okay, so I kind of like that structure. I'm going to go with a practical piece of advice and then more of like an ethos piece of advice. So the practical or like logistical is to just get organized. I'm a very right-brained numbers person, so I get organized using spreadsheets. Maybe you're the type of person that uses Post-it notes, poster board. You're going to be encountering a lot of information throughout this process. Whether you're talking with your college counselor, you're going on a campus tour, you're going to an information session, and spoiler alert, all these colleges are going to blend together after a while. They're all going to sound the same. You're going to be, wait, what school was that? Where were we on I-95 in the Northeast? So you need to keep all these colleges straight. So whether it's their admissions policies, their deadlines, what type of campus was it? Maybe that was the campus where you had the really amazing tour guide who taught you about a new department that they had. Trying to be organized and keep all that straight will help you when you get to that, summer before senior year, when you're writing those essays, when you're researching more. And that's when you'll get to see that information pay off and you're kind of shaping your journey at that point. So getting organized, it doesn't sound fun, it's not glamorous, but you'll thank me later, I promise. The other thing in terms of like the ethos of this process, I know there's going to be a lot of comparison that goes on. People are going to be asking, what school are you applying to? Where are you applying early? What are you doing? Don't compare yourself to other people. You are on your own path, your own journey, and embrace that. It's not where your friend is going to spend the next 4 years. It's where you're going to spend the next 4 years. You need to find what's the right fit for you. Maybe that's a brand name school. Maybe that, appears in all the rankings. Or maybe it's a lesser known school, but that's the one that's perfect for you. So don't compare yourself to what your classmates are doing, what Reddit says you should do, even what your parents say sometimes. Listen to them a little bit. They're important. But also listen to your college counselors. These are wonderful, supportive individuals in your life, and they want to help you as you discover yourself and where you're going to spend the next 4 years of your academic journey. So that's my piece.
Can I just say I regret going last? I should have gone first. At the end of the day, this isn't a competition of who gets into what school, but at the end of the day, the application should show who you've been in the last 4 years and your potential for the next 4 years. There's 4,000 schools in the United States. You're going to find a school that's going to be that right fit for you. And at the end of the day, the four of us, none of us wake up in the morning and we're like, we can't wait to deny students. That's not what we do. We're always trying to find it, and I believe Nate mentioned it best, and correct me if I say it incorrectly. Did you mention multi-dimensional texture? Love it. I'm gonna steal it. I'm giving you a heads up, I'm stealing that one. That's what we're looking for. And I'll give you the best example. Does anyone here like Harry Potter? Yeah, good. I'm not a Harry Potter fan. I don't get it. Don't get it. Don't get Harry Potter. Don't understand Star Wars. Never seen Star Trek. I'm not a sci-fi guy. I know I'm gonna lose a few points on this. But I remember a few years ago, we interviewed a student on campus. She was a little bit right there on the edge of should we offer admission or not. So I see on her application that she was the president of the Harry Potter Club. Perfect person to interview, right? So in my head, shame on me, I made a preconceived notion. And I asked her, hey, what do you do as the president of the Harry Potter Club? They would dress up like Harry Potter characters and go to children's hospitals once a month. Right? Everybody that made a preconceived notion, don't you feel bad too, right? We accepted her on the spot. At the end of the day, none of us are looking for 4.0 GPAs with 36 ACTs, 1,600 SATs, captain of the football team, captain of the water polo team, you found the cure for cancer, you're involved in the investment management club, your prom king or queen. You have to have a life and you have to accept your imperfections. That's what makes us who we are. Because guess what, if you're too perfect on paper, are you really going to be perfect on campus? So, again, I just go back to this process is not a competition who gets into what school, but it's a testament of who you've been in the last 4 years and your potential for the next 4.
Thank you all. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Connie Ernstberger, and she's going to talk about admissions specifics.
So I think we started to transition into talking about the admission process. So this is a question for all 4 of you, and I want you to put your hat on that represents the whole of your category of college. So when it comes to each of you, speak to the ratio of importance in terms of academic performance, like in school, transcripts, GPAs, right? Versus test scores, versus the activities and extracurriculars and character and all the other pieces and parts of the application. Because I think you're gonna hear a little bit different answer from each type of college. So liberal arts, tell us Lynn, what do you think the ratio of a student comes to you? You talked about the extracurricular, kind of put that student over the top for their admissions. Does it start with academics? Does it start with character? What does it start with? What is the ratio of those aspects of an application?
I knew I put my foot in my mouth when I said I should have gone first last one.
There you go.
So I'll give you an example. So when I came from Argentina after my failed soccer career, I thought I want to be a chef. Then I realized I like eating more than I like cooking. Quick career change. I always compare this analogy to food. Shocker, shocker, right? It's like a pizza. There's different slices that's equally divided, and it's going to be academic rigor. It's going to be who you've been outside of the classroom. It might be SAT, ACT scores, because some schools do require them. I'll be transparent. I've been working with Gulliver since 2011. I've never seen a poor letter of recommendation, so that's the last thing you have to worry about. But at the end of the day, the essay, I think it's so crucial because that's what's going to make you stand out from everybody else, because it's your story. We always say, it's something that when we pick up your essay, we shouldn't know it's you. It should be something completely different outside of your involvement, your GPA, maybe something that's said on the letter of recommendation. Pick something that's going to make you stand out. Best example, my favorite essay of all time was, introductory. My name is not Charlie, but I grew up in a chocolate factory. To this day, I still think of Willy Wonka, right? Don't you think of Willy Wonka? Right? Those are great starting points, but at the end of the day, every portion is equal. If it wasn't important, we wouldn't ask for it.
Thank you. For most selective colleges, so you're not just Penn today, you are most selective colleges in general. What is the admission process from that perspective?
Okay, so I'm not Penn today, so ignore this.
Yes.
So I think at most highly selective schools, we're looking at the academics first. So when we open an application, we're looking at your transcript, your rigor that you've taken, how you performed in that rigor is going to be important. So taking challenging classes and doing well in them, 9th grade, 10th grade, all the way up to senior year, that's what we want to see. And the reason we look at the transcript first is because At its core, these are challenging places, and when we admit students to our universities, we want to set them up for success. We want to make sure they can handle the rigor and that they're going to thrive in this environment. So that's why academics are really going to be the foundation of applications to most highly selective schools. The other thing I wanted to highlight is, talked a little bit about the personal statement, but most highly selective universities have supplemental essays as part of their process. And the reality is that a lot of these universities receive tens of thousands of applications. And I'll tell you all a really big secret. The reality is most of the students that apply to highly selective schools could come to those schools. They could, they got the grades, they're involved in their communities, they could do the work, but there just aren't enough spaces for all the talented students. So what highly selective schools look for is who is going to bring the most to that campus, who knows that campus, who knows that culture and what they offer, and is really going to make a mark there and take advantage of everything. So supplemental essays are your first kind of hint or clue, like what matters to that university. Because if they're asking you to answer a question about it, an essay prompt, that matters to them. So really taking the time to answer those supplemental essays fully, thoughtfully, completely, making sure your answers aren't generic, or they could be about any school, that's going to be the best way to show your fit with some of these highly selective schools.
Thank you. Very good. All right, so University of Miami is going to represent a school that has different departments that have different aspects of their application depending on which department you apply to.
So, in terms of, we can focus maybe on performance-based review. The academics are still going to be important because ultimately you're being reviewed based on the academics submitted to like a department, but the reality is that there could be other layers of requirements such as an audition or portfolio review. And so what I would say there is, again, focus on, kind of showcasing your ability, maybe something that would be creative or unique. Make sure you know the process, make sure you know the deadlines. Sometimes with those additional materials that are required, they have cutoff points. If you miss the audition, there's no other auditions offered, right? It sounds simple enough, but at the end of the day, sometimes those programs, actually many times those programs have those added layers, right? In terms of, academic review based on department, for business, probably a good idea to kind of max out, your school's math progression, right? So you probably want to be at, not a requirement, but you probably want to be further along than say, Algebra 2 or even pre-calc in your senior year. You maybe want to have taken calculus. Some of those programs may actually have required math or science courses. So again, pay attention to what's required, whether it's 3 years of science, 2 of which need to be labs, but kind of play to those strengths. If you want to go for, marine and atmospheric science, make sure you max out all of the kind of STEM offerings, those types of things.
Thank you. All right, so for a big public school, that, why don't you start with the number of applications you get every year?
I don't have a final number yet this year, but we're going north of 70,000.
Okay. So you read over every single essay super carefully. No.
Well,
Tell us about how that goes.
That's what changes it. For a large state public university, we do not have an essay. So in many ways, it is a lot more cut and dry when it comes down to a GPA and a test score. I think there's been some really positive changes in recent years that many schools like us are now test optional. And so that can really open up opportunities for students that maybe weren't there before. But what I want you to remember about that, when a school is test optional, it means that the other things are more meaningful, more impactful. So that GPA is now going to get looked at a lot closer. We're going to look at that class schedule. We're going to look at that core GPA. We're going to look at all of it. But if you're not submitting a test score, it will not hurt your application at all. But know that it means we're looking at the other stuff a little more closely because we don't have as many things to look at. And while we don't have an essay, and many schools don't, we do have questions in our application that give you the opportunity to tell us about yourself. So you want your application to make sense. because your application is telling a story, whether that's through your GPA, through your course selection, through your essay, your application is telling a story. And it's telling the story of you, and it needs to make sense. And if it doesn't, if you jumped around a little bit, maybe you were interested in this and maybe you were interested in that, that's okay. But tell us about that. Tell us why your interest changed. Tell us what that looked at. I also want to add that many large state schools have rolling admissions. And rolling admissions means that as soon as you receive your completed application, we're able to make an admission decision very quickly. Because of that, it is helpful to apply early, because we're making decisions every day, and for students that are applying much later in the cycle, if our class has begun to fill up, maybe the admissions requirements are a little tougher, because we've already admitted so many students early on in the year that if you're applying much later in the year, it can be a little more challenging. So it is definitely to your benefit to apply to rolling admission schools earlier in the process. Alabama is that way. I think UCF is another good example of rolling admissions, and applying early is always going to be to the student's benefit. But just understand that when you're looking test optional, it means that GPA is going to be looked at a little bit more closely, and that really opens up a lot of opportunities for a lot of students.
Great, very good, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Nichelle Haymore, and she's going to talk about, well, money, finances.
So, financial considerations, one of the important parts of being all about money. So, I want to ask just one person to respond to, very simply, what are scholarships based on, and how do students find them? You, Penn.
No pressure. What are scholarships based on and where to find them? So I think there's two types of scholarships. There are need-based scholarships and merit-based scholarships. So need-based is going to be based off of a family's financial need as determined by documents like the FAFSA, the Federal Application for Financial Aid, and other financial aid documents. So that'll be need-based aid. Some schools only offer need-based aid. So Penn, the other Ivy Leagues, a lot of other highly selective universities are only going to offer need-based aid. Other schools will offer need and merit-based. So merit-based aid it's kind of like awarding merit. So that could be a high GPA or a great transcript. That could be a special talent. So maybe you're really stellar at a certain sport, or you're a very talented artist or musician, or maybe you just did something really great in your community. So there's a lot of local community scholarships too that are merit-based. And that may be writing an essay, presenting some sort of application. So those are like the two types of aid. Merit-based aid is going to be received primarily from, merit-based aid, if you're looking for local scholarships, most of them will be merit-based, though some may also be need-based as well. And where to find them?
Oh, that's great, that's great. Thank you, but of course we'll have more information with the counselors where we talk about scholarships and how students can apply for merit-based. Sometimes it's embedded in the application process, and sometimes it's separate, but we're always glad to help students figure out how to navigate that process. So the next question is going to be for all the panelists, so we'll start here right to my left. Who should apply for financial aid, and how is that done at your institution?
As a large state public university, our financial aid is limited to the FAFSA application. It is limited to government-based aid, which means it is quite limited. So even students that are receiving the full amount of aid through their FAFSA application, it's only going to pay a small portion of the total cost of attendance. And that's how our financial aid base is worked through the FAFSA application. Merit is really where we focus our students. And I want to add real quick, because I think it's such a good piece of advice, that it's not mine. I stole it from Paul at Tulane. If you'll ever work with him, he's great. But he gave the best advice I've ever heard for scholarships and aid and what to expect. And I always pass it on to my students. And that is, if you are at your reach school and just barely getting in and you're going for it and you got in, that's a school that maybe you shouldn't expect a lot of aid from. From your school that you know is a school you are far exceeding their base requirements for admissions, that's a school that you're probably going to expect more scholarships from. And I just thought that was a good, simple way to look at those REACH schools. If you're just barely meeting their admissions requirements, probably not in line for scholarships there. The ones that you're really exceeding, that's probably a school that's going to give you a good scholarship opportunity.
So the question was how to go about applying for need-based aid?
Yes.
Okay. So, so I would say the first thing is that everyone should be aware that years ago, I think it was under President Obama, the feds required every institution to put a net price calculator on their website. So the first thing that I would do, especially at this early stage of the process, is to go on each institution's net price calculator and plug in variables, right? Some of them that offer hybrid financial aid models, that is, they offer both merit-based and need-based aid. It might prompt the student to put in their GPA or a test score if they know it, to see if you would qualify for any sort of merit-based aid. But then there's a lot of numbers that the parents can put in, adjusted gross income, assets, et cetera, that can kind of spit out how much need-based financial aid you may qualify for. The caveats are plentiful. Number one is it's an estimate, right? So it's not, you shouldn't expect to receive whatever number it spits out, right? The output's only as good as the input. So if you forget to add a zero to the income, or if you add a couple extra, that's going to influence what the outcome would be. It gets a little bit tricky if the student is kind of in a non-nuclear family, meaning to say if it's a divorced home and one or both of the parents have remarried and there's non-custodial parent information that's required. If you own a farm, which I don't know how likely that would be right here, but that would be a little bit tricky. That was a joke, by the way, too. Anyway, but that's a good starting point. The other thing I would say is make sure that you're aware, and I think Chrissy said it earlier about there's a lot of information, not just about admission, but then you start layering in financial aid, deadlines, per school, what's required. Is it just the FAFSA? Is it the FAFSA and the profile, tax returns, et cetera, et cetera. Keep it all straight, but most important, make sure you're applying by the deadline. And especially, I'm going to kind of drop this on everyone, for your incoming class next year, the federal government's already announced that the FAFSA is going through a major change, and it likely will not be ready for you until the end of the calendar year, which is even more important that the second it comes out, you and your parents rush to fill it out on time, okay? Because it could influence kind of the award package that you receive from the colleges and the universities. So there's a lot to keep straight, but what's most important is go on the net price calculator, know the requirements for each institution to which you're applying, know the deadlines to each institution to which you're applying, and that would be a kind of good way to kind of begin. And also, the last thing I'll say, even if you don't think you would qualify for need-based financial aid, go ahead and go through the process anyway. It's better to have no regrets and kind of say, hey, I wonder, if I would have qualified. Just fill out the information in Canada, especially the FAFSA, it is free.
So at Penn, our financial aid is need-based. As I mentioned earlier, none of the Ivies offer merit-based aid. It's all going to be need-based based on the family's financial situation. So the FAFSA, the CSS profile, and Penn also requires an additional kind of supplemental document that gets a better picture of your family's financials. So those are going to be the three documents. The other thing I want to highlight is the term need blind. So Penn and a lot of the other Ivy League schools are going to be need blind for the bulk of their applicant pool. So usually U.S. citizens, permanent residents, undocumented students, etc. So when you go to visit schools, talk to the financial aid offices, talk to the admissions officer, there's a couple terms. There's going to be need blind and need aware. So some schools are need blind, which means that your financial need doesn't factor into the admissions decision at all. And other schools may be need aware. So your family's financial need may play a role in that admissions decision. So that's another thing to add into that spreadsheet or that table that you're getting organized, and it can help keep schools straight based off of their financial aid policies. The last thing I want to underscore is that the college search process, it's not just about finding the right campus, the right fit, the right vibe. It's also about finding what's going to be affordable for you and your family. So having those conversations about financial affordability, using that net price calculator early on, getting those conversations started. If If I were admitted to X school, what kind of package could I expect? Don't be afraid to reach out to financial aid offices. That's what they're there for. They're a great resource. They're there to talk not only to current students, but to prospective students too. So if you have questions, if you need clarifications, they're going to be a great resource in this process. So having these conversations about affordability and scholarships, what you can afford to pay, is really important because you don't want to get to the end of the process and be like, oh wait, I got into my dream school, but it may not be a fit for me financially. So making sure you have these conversations regularly can kind of help avoid that at the end.
Great responses. I really have nothing to add except I know that almost everybody has Instagram. If y'all have a chance to follow Scholarship Money for Students, it is a Instagram page that's run by a college counselor that has about 25 years of experience in the public school sector in Broward. She only posts scholarships that her students have won. So it's legitimate, it's authentic, and this is a great opportunity to really have more stackable aid. And I'll also give you an example. As you're looking at schools, don't let the sticker price shock you. There's merit scholarships, there's need-based aid. And I'll give you an example just for the, within the state of Florida, the private schools, we can offer something called an ease grant, which is just because your family are Florida residents, you could get between $2,000 right now. We think it's gonna go up to about $44,000, and we can still combine Bright Futures, prepaid. So don't let the sticker price shock you, because at the end of it, it might actually come out to be cheaper than a state school.
Great, thank you so much. So this is the final question for the panel, and we can just work our way back down this way towards me. So as the students and families think about the application process itself, what do you think needs to be added to all the great advice that's been shared as some final thoughts or words for parents? Advice to parents and families, yes. Absolutely.
Advice. Let's hop in. So I think we've all had a lot of good advice that we've shared tonight. I think parents, the advice that was given earlier about letting your student direct this process, this is where, one of their first steps they're making as an adult. They're figuring out what campus, what school, what type of learning style is going to be the best fit for them. So let them discover, let them try new things, visit a campus, whether it's a local campus or going on that traditional college tour. This is going to be where you see your students start to come alive and figure out what's going to be the best fit for them. It's a time to take a step back a little bit. I know sometimes when students are writing essays or you're trying to get them to make sure they complete everything before the deadline, you want to hound them a little bit. But as I like to say, when I read an essay, I can tell if it's a 17-year-old's voice or a 45-year-old lawyer's voice. They are very distinct. This is not my first rodeo. So take a step back, maybe look it over, but don't write it, don't interfere too much. This is their process and this is their journey, and you've raised them really well, and this is one of their first steps into the real world. So let them soar, and I think you'll be pleased with the results.
Okay, let me think of maybe one or two other things to mention. So we haven't talked at all about early decision. I'm just going to throw this out there because I think you guys have early decision, right? Yeah, so we do as well. I've been doing this for about 20 years, and early decision, by the way, is the admission plan that is binding in nature. So if you're admitted, the university does expect that you'll withdraw other applications to colleges and then enroll at that institution. Generally speaking, not always the case, but I haven't heard of a case where this isn't true. Admit rates are usually the highest within the binding plans. Again, maybe not universal, but predominantly the case. And so going into the process, I'll just mention, number one, students, make sure you've fallen in love with that institution, because it's entirely possible that you're going to be admitted. So don't apply early decision because mom and dad are an alum of that institution. I've heard of stories actually where the kid gets admitted to the school and they didn't really want to go. And so that's number one. Number two is don't do early decision if your enrollment's contingent on a merit scholarship, right? Because you won't find out about the merit scholarship in the case of, for example, University of Miami until after you've been admitted, and we would like you to attend by that point. And then the third thing is don't do early decision if you want to compare need-based financial aid packages. So it doesn't mean that if you are going to apply for need-based aid, you shouldn't do early decision. It just means if you want to see what University of Miami would give you a need-based financial aid versus Tulane, versus Southern Cal, versus NYU, versus University of Florida, don't do early decision. So that's what I would say. And then lastly, another maybe tidbit for the students is, I do this at all of our admitted student events. I always like to see, having done college choice theory in grad school, how many schools kids are applying to, right? And it's a lot more than when I was going through the college process back in the late 90s. You know, back then it was like 11% of kids applied to like 7 or more schools, and now it's like probably more than 40% applying to like 12 or more schools, right? And so we're all the beneficiaries of more applications that students send out there. So, and that creates more competition and lower admit rates and blah, blah, blah. So at the end of the day, thinking back to the process of self-discovery and not compiling a list of 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, I've heard as many as 45 this year, 45 institutions that a student applied to. Again, your college counseling staff is a great staff, very resourced, knowledgeable, but your list should really be dominated by those at which you would thrive, in which you find a best fit, you know, and they should be numbered, because the last thing I'll mention is this time of year, we're still waiting for a percentage of our deposits to come in. And I won't say more often than not, but definitely in at least a plurality of cases, students cannot make a decision because they've applied to 15, 20 schools, and they've been admitted to 15 or 20 schools, and there's so many choices that, you know, it's kind of, so again, know yourself, know the schools, and I think that would be helpful.
I'm going to take this in a bit of a different direction since you're asking
Sure.
for advice for parents, and I'm going to give you advice from a parent and not an admissions counselor. And in my experience in this as a parent, is it is much like talking to other parents when your children were babies, when the mother next to you is going to say, well, my baby slept through the night when they were 6 weeks old, and my baby learned to walk when they were 8 months old, and my 2-year-old's reading chapter books. These parents may not be telling you the truth. So do not compare your child's application process to what your great friends are telling you about their child's application process. I find that the stories tend to be very similar to the same conversations you had when they were babies. That I know they're all great and they're all amazing, but guess what? They all did eventually learn to sleep through the night. They all did eventually learn to walk and read chapter books, and they all will eventually get into college. So just take it all with a grain of salt and trust your child through the process.
Manage your own expectations. One of my mentors once told me, and it always stood out to me, your mentality changes every 5 years. Understand that maybe when you arrive to college, you may change majors. So when you're picking a school, unless it's direct entry into that program, make sure it has your top 5 interests. That's what happened to me. I went from hospitality to criminal justice. Guess who doesn't like blood? Went into business. I couldn't do it. Then I went into the pre-law track, and I did an internship, and I realized it wasn't for me. It's okay to change majors. It's okay to change friend groups. You're going to grow as an individual. And it's funny, not to poke at this story, but Nate brought up a great story about comparing colleges. Also be cautious in the news when they're like, oh, this one student won $9 million in scholarships from over 170 different colleges. How do you distinguish that? You can't distinguish it, and I think his goal right now is to make it to another million? I guess my question is, what's the purpose behind it if it's not going to be the right fit? Manage your expectations. If you have a chance, read Frank Bruni's book. Incredible book. I'm going to paraphrase it for you. It's not where you go, it's what you do with your opportunities there. But manage your own expectations and understand that your mind's going to change while in college, and that's the purpose of college. New ideas, new creeds, new values, new ethics, new friend groups, new perspectives. That's what college is about.
Thank you so much for the great advice you're sharing with the families. We'll now have Sarah Capel come up and do the session wrap up.
I'll be quick, I promise. Thank you so much to our amazing panelists for their awesome expertise and their time tonight. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to ask them to exit the stage right now because they're kind of the famous people in the building and we'll be treating them to dinner. So guys, go ahead and exit. Thank you. Really quickly, just a few quick notes. Please feel free to stop by and see Miss LeDuc on the way out. She's here representing Revolution Prep. Make sure you're taking advantage of your free test prep hours, okay? And she can answer any questions that you might have about the SAT and the ACT. There are a few online opportunities coming up for test prep. There's an online parent presentation, PSAT Now What, Wednesday, May 10th, 2023. At 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's free, it's live, and it's online. There's a digital PSAT practice exam, Saturday, May 13th, 2023, obviously, and that will be from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. That's also free and it's online, so please take advantage of those. One other reminder, so next year you will be meeting with your college counselors much more frequently. You will have both individual and group meetings with them. In the fall, in August actually, we'll have our first meeting with the students so we can start talking about how we speak to the college representatives who will be available starting next year and senior year to them. Okay? Have a great night, guys. Finish this school year strong, and thank you all for joining us. Please feel free to grab a pencil on the way out.
Hi.
Julia.